you've made it to day 7, communication no-nos. So before we end this series, I'd like to leave you with these no-nos, and one of them is mind reading. This has gotten many couples into trouble, as the situations get blown way out of proportion because they do this mind reading thing. Even if you are very intuitive, don't try to read your spouse's mind, or don't expect him or her to read yours. Because when you try to guess what your spouse is thinking, you make decisions and react based on information that might just be a figment of your imagination. And it's just not worth the negative outcome that results. You may be upset and waste hours or days stewing over something that you created in your mind. And often you will not only be wrong, but you will make matters far worse than they already are. If you want to know what your spouse is thinking, the best thing to do is just gently, nicely ask. If you need your spouse to know what you are feeling or what you want from him or her, you need to nicely, gently, directly speak to them. While in a perfect world, our spouse would instinctively know all of our needs without us asking, they're often so busy in their own world that they're not thinking about your needs as much as you are. That's just natural. It's just being human. And nor will they necessarily know what you need without being told. Here's another no-no, dumping. Sometimes we struggle with holding in our hurts and frustrations, and then we can't hold it any longer, and so our spouse comes home and we dump. And we get it off our chest, and there's this sense of relief, yes, but the problem is that our spouse is now feeling stressed out or reactive, or sometimes attacked. If you have something important to say, especially if it's a complaint, an objection, an emotional upset with your spouse, don't dump without consideration of the other. And also think of the timing. We have to think of the timing of, is this a good time for them? Is this, what are they going through? Which is why we don't communicate these things during text or over text or leaving voicemails, because we don't know how they're going to, what the timing is going to be that they're going to read this, or, it's just not a good way. They can't interpret how we're feeling or our tone of voice when we're texting, especially. So, for example, the moment that your spouse walks in the door tired and hungry, that's not the best time. When you catch your spouse off guard, their primary response will be survival, and that often looks like withdrawing on their part or reacting defensively. But can you blame them? Instead of dumping, ask your spouse if he or she is available to talk. Is this a good time? And if not, just let them know, it's okay. Just let's schedule some time within the next 24 hours to have an important conversation. And when you take your spouse into consideration, you're more likely to have your concerns heard and have him or her willing to engage with you in the future. Another communication no-no is unsolicited advice. As well-intentioned as you may be, unsolicited advice can be a big communication no-no. If your spouse is sharing his or her feelings, it's not always best to offer your assessment of the situation unless asked, even if it's painful for you to hear. Because a lot of times they just want to talk and aren't really at that moment looking for your advice. For example, if your husband or wife is depressed and opens up and shares their feelings of misery, telling him or her that they have a lot to be grateful for might not be helpful at that time. It might leave them feeling invalidated, and they might feel less likely to share with you in the future. And if you are truly listening, your focus must be on the one sharing, not on your own feelings of discomfort. Your feelings are important and could be the topic of a different discussion, but not necessarily now. Do your best to validate, though, by either not responding or sharing validation phrases such as, you know, what you're saying makes sense, or your feelings are important to me, or what you're saying is valid. Healthy communication is so essential to relationships because communication is the means by which we relate to our spouse. We cannot not communicate. So we need to put in work necessary to communicate effectively, which has been the whole reason of this video series. While mind reading and dumping and interrupting and unsolicited advice often come as second nature to us, they are extremely unhelpful ways of communicating, as they break trust and inhibit connection. Healthy communication creates a structure, though, of safety in the marriage, which allows for love and connection to be able to thrive. So some questions now as we finish this video on no-nos and actually finish this series of videos on communication. Do you struggle with mind reading and dumping and unsolicited advice? Is this something that you could work on? So watch this video again, take note of the things that stand out to you and discuss them with your partner if possible. Hey, would you send me an email if this has been helpful to you, this particular series on communication? You can just send it at tom@pastortomcoaching.com. That's tom@pastortomcoaching.com. Maybe you have questions or you'd like to talk about your relationship. Maybe I could help you. I'd be happy to do that. Just communicate with me at tom@pastortomcoaching.com. Thanks again for being a part of this series with me.